And as Zoom asks us to make certain announcements, I will do the needful. This is to inform all of you that the session is being recorded and participants can choose not to participate through their microphone and or camera. So feel free to turn off. However, we'll be really happy to have you on video. The structure of the session is very interactive. We would love to see you on video and be able to engage and speak with you. And my fault of trying to act smart and sending the registration link after I had joined, I think it's allowing everybody to join as me. So if you can all please click the 3 dots beside your name and change it to your names, we'll know who we are speaking with. I'll request you to keep your audios turned off unless you need to speak. It will be really helpful if you can raise your hand, your digital hand on Zoom so that we know who is going to be speaking next. We'll be working through a series of questions to deepen our understanding of the coaching competency 2, embodies a coaching mindset. With that, I bring up my slide. Zoom and share screen. Yeah, can somebody let me know that you're able to see my screen now?
Yes, we can
see, but it is in a next slideshow mode. Maybe you need to
change that one. Hold on. Yeah, I think that's the mistake I do always. The challenge of using dual monitors. Does that work now?
It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me start by setting in some context as to why we are discussing this topic. The first and honest answer is that I'm doing a course wherein they're helping us look through each of these competencies in so much more greater detail, and I'm enjoying the process. So the idea of running something like this for the Bengaluru chapter really initiated or sparked when I'm attending that course. The conversations are so powerful, so I decided, okay, let me do something similar. I may not be as great, but the idea is together we will co-create our understanding of what this competency means to us. Secondly, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had sent out a survey asking all of you in terms of how do you experience learning in the Bengaluru chapter? What is it that you would like to learn? What is it that you would want us see, presenting more in terms of these events? And here is what you said. And as you can see, coaching competency is just second to coaching tools being the top priority topic of interest for all of you. Coaching competencies was the second. We are trying to accommodate each of your requests, and you'll see more topics, upcoming learning sessions being scheduled around these as we go. Last but not the least, a number of us have undergone the training using the 11 competencies. I still believe that it's not a huge change, but it's nice to, reposition our understanding from 11 to 8 competencies and see what has changed. So it's learning, whether you are PCC, MCC, ACC, you're learning. I think this is going to be a great learning experience for all of us. And for that to happen, I would request all of you to participate wholeheartedly, learn from each other. And I'm glad I said that because I'm no expert in these competencies, but what I am is I'm a coach. So I will ask questions so that we can together figure out what these competencies mean to us. And I'm hoping all of you are signing up for this and you're geared up for this. Okay, with that, we see on the slide, the competency 2 embodies a coaching mindset with the definition of how ICF defines it. Develops and maintains a mindset that is open, curious, flexible, and client-centered. If I may ask you to look at the text chat, where initially I had said, what is your understanding? I'm going to see if there are any comments on the text chat. Few have come in. Client-centered, deep diving, open. So let's not wait for it. Let's just call out what our understanding is with regards to this competency. What do you understand of this competency? Feel free to unmute and speak. Unseen. Hands raised as yet. Anyone?
It's probably the same thing. Can I speak? Yeah, this is Naz here speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it seems like what is it that you bring to the table? What is your state of mind, and what do you want to do? So, which means, like he said, it means you being in a certain mindset helps the coachee, which means to be open, to be flexible, not to give too much of instructions, listen deeply, all these things.
Listen deeply, not give too much of instructions. Yeah. If you can look at the words, develops and maintains. Both of them are verbs. So there are some doing things. So that coach does something, develops and maintains a mindset. What does the coach develop and what does the coach maintain? And question to everyone. Yeah, it's not a specific person who might need to answer.
Develops a relationship with the
and
he maintains non-judgmental, thoughts while he's in the conversation with the coachee.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I also see a couple of comments in the text chat. Client-centered, deep diving, open for ongoing learning. Thanks, Srinivas, for adding that. It's a learning on both sides, the coach and the client. It is entering the coaching space, mindless, 100% client-focused. Thanks, Dee. Natural will to extend as a partner towards the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Lovely, lovely. Develop ongoing learning and reflective practice. Keep developing. So lots of things that you're talking about developing. Yeah. Now let's look at the other parts. Open and curious. What do those mean to you?
Yeah, hi, Anuj here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. I think the idea of curious is that, and open also, is that you remain open-ended and not jump to any conclusions, not apply your own filters, leave any preconceived notions aside. And the idea of, fixing is always easier in a way, especially if it's your own journey. But we probably have a natural tendency to do it for others. People do.
Yeah.
And as a coach, we have to avoid that trap.
Yeah.
And therefore,
being non-judgmental, being open to all sorts of possibilities. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yes.
What Anuj said. So the curiosity is coming from a state of not knowing, because when I develop that mindset, I am leaving my 40 years of experience outside the coaching space and going in with the state of not knowing, because curiosity can be from a knowing state and from a not knowing state, and not knowing state is my experientially the best state for me to be totally flexible and client centered, because when I go in with that 40 years experienced journey, I am experiencing that the curiosity is stemming from the window of my knowing, and I want to be from this not knowing curiosity. And that's just something which
not knowing curiosity. Initially, when you started, Johnny, I was thinking you were talking about curious by not knowing, but this is a step further. curiosity can also stem from knowing and not knowing, and the kind of curiosity that really helps you embody the coaching mindset is curiosity in the not knowing space. How beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
And if I can add the client-centered thing, the coach need to be having no agenda. No, he has to work with the coach's agenda.
Yeah.
So every discussion, every thoughts, what he enables into the conversation, it should be a client centric.
Yeah. Tell me more about client-centric. What does client-centric mean to you?
So what he is dealing, what is the key objective of the discussion which lined up, okay, and hearing, knowing what the state of his mind or the subject what he is intent to discuss, and just stay on that the topic of the client, not the coach's topic.
Yeah.
And also in one way, understanding and probing the exact reason of why the client needs a coaching.
Tell me more. May I know who that was? I couldn't see you on the video.
Here.
Once again, please.
Neeti Kesarwani.
Neeti, sure.
So many a times a client gets into a coaching call with various reasons, but while probing, and with the right path, the coachee may come and understand that what is the actual purpose of getting into coaching and what is the desired result the person is actually looking for.
Yeah, so you're relating by being curious about the client, you become more client-centered. Is that fair, Neeti?
Absolutely.
Thank you. What does flexible mean? Yeah, I can hear somebody want to say.
There's some element of empathy here from what I hear. In terms of being in the position the client is with respect to their agenda or what they're thinking from their point of view. So using empathy to cognitively and emotionally to be where the client is.
To be where the client is. Lovely. One more word left in all the words we see on the screen is flexible. How is a coach being flexible when they're embodying a coaching mindset?
Not to have fixed ideas and notions, not to be judgmental.
Yeah.
To have a fair idea how, be more progressive. And I think that's the crux of, interaction of a client. So it's more of your focus is towards client rather than having a being judgmental about it.
Yeah. And who decides whether progress happened in a session or not?
I think it's mutual. More so with experience, yes, it's the coach. But I can say even the coachee can have a fair idea how is progressed in the session.
Thanks for sharing. I had a very different experience where initially when I had just started coaching and, there was this urge to get the client somewhere. Something needs to happen magically in a session. And there would be sessions where we would have spoken for an hour and then I would feel, nothing moved. And I'd be not very happy closing the session there. And I would say, do you want to stay on? Do you have 10 minutes? The client will say, no, sorry, I'm done. And I would hang up, but with this feeling of not done, not enough, I've not contributed. And funnily, some of those clients have really enjoyed those sessions and, they found things move for them. Whereas I, as a coach, haven't found anything moving for anyone. I think that's where, as I'm doing more of coaching, what I'm learning is I don't know whether something moved for the client or not. Somewhere.
I can resonate with that because of late, even I had a similar session wherein I feel as a coach, I was not satisfied. But on the contrary, the coachee was, not into that. I think she was in a better state. But yes, resonate. At times, I think we are hard on ourselves. So,
So true.
fair enough.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure all of us have different kinds of experiences, and here we have two experiences where the coach feels being able to identify what is more for the client, and I was there feeling not able to identify what is more for the clients. I'm sure we'll have very many other experiences also being shared in the session. My next question to all of you is, how will you explain this competency to a 10-year-old?
Without us telling them, they are in their own world, they are more open and curious, I would say. And they are very flexible. At that age and stage, they are more flexible than even the professionals or the teenagers. So I can say that right now.
Wow. So you're relating the being of a 10-year-old to be embodying a coaching mindset where they are curious, open, flexible, and, focused on what their parents want, what their friends want. They are their clients. How interesting. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other definition of how you would explain embodies a coaching mindset to a 10-year-old?
I would actually model an excellence from a 10-year-old and come back with a little more deeper understanding of this competency rather than doing it in the other way around.
How do you intend to do that?
Just like what the other Shanti just explained. I wonder what her real name is. So she explained it so beautifully that, this they are the people who actually embody a coaching mindset.
Yeah.
They have not done any ICF competencies, but if you look at children, they live this embodied mindset of coaching throughout their stage. And then as they grow into an adulthood, I think we come out of it also. And we were all at that stage. And we just have to get back to that part of our stage of evolution.
Of not knowing and being okay with it is what comes to me when you said stage of not knowing. Yeah. Lovely. Any other comments before I move to the next question?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to what all of them said. Actually, it's triggered from what Johnny said earlier about an open, empty mind. Empty mind, as you know, in spiritually concepts, it exists a lot in Buddhism and even in the Vedantas, where the child here, of course, we are comparing to the sense of wonderment, right? The curiosity is the sense of wonderment, which means I think they describe it as seeing things for the first time. The beginner's mindset, they call it, right? Even in Buddhism, they call it beginner's mindset. I think Johnny was alluding to that. And that with this thing of when I don't have an agenda, when I'm not pre-thinking anything, which is what children do, I'm so spontaneous and creativity abounds. And when we are in the creative field, we are taught to acquire that. We lose it after being children. Then we practice it a lot. Most performers learn to do that, even in sport, for instance, to have that empty state where your muscle memory and everything takes off. Don't let the cognitive, what they call the left brain, to interfere and say you did it well or you didn't do it well. So I just wanted to add that to what Johnny and the others said earlier.
Thanks, Nazaris. I think that's a lovely layer to what Johnny said.
It's also called the Devil's Workshop on a lighter note.
Tell me more about the Devil's Workshop. What is it?
When we say an idle mind or empty mind is a Devil's Workshop. I'm curious how that can be inferred.
It is the old Anglo-Saxon version of the devil's idle mind.
That's right.
Lovely. Okay, so
I think it connects in some ways as a coach for me to challenge the coachee and therefore be the devil's advocate. Yeah.
Very
so thanks for bringing in that devil into this space.
Devil aspect. Yeah. Yeah. We are challenging the client to think beyond their comfort zone, to think about possibilities. So I'm sure we are playing a devil's advocate while embodying coaching mindset. How lovely. Okay. What do you observe in a coach doing or being that indicates to you that the competency is being demonstrated? So to put it simply, if you are looking at a coaching recording or you're looking at a transcript, what will you see, observe that will tell you that this competency is being demonstrated?
The first would be that if you're talking less, I guess, it would be very apparent.
Absolutely. If you're talking less, correct. And
I think first would be the listening skill, same as the person just mentioned.
yeah,
Would be if the person is showing empathy in terms of, making the client more comfortable and listening to what he or she is saying, understanding it,
yeah,
verbally or non-verbally.
yeah. Listening to what is being said and what is not being said. It is
Yes.
all over the client. Yeah.
Also, what you're doing with us, which is you're saying, tell me more.
Thank you. I've been practicing coaching. Yeah.
I think one more thing is, to me, I would like to see whether, the coach is trying too hard.
Yeah. And how will you notice? What will they be doing when they're trying too hard?
One is obviously they might speak more, or they might keep on probing more. But it could also be just in, maybe not from the transcript, but from the tone, etc. How calm is the coach, in the sense, you're, as a coach, sometimes we come from obviously this ego thing that, we want things to work, right? We want the session to go great.
Yeah.
But even if it doesn't go great, we should be fine with it. I would say not too goal oriented, and even probably in that sense, not very, very focused, just little calm, relaxed, not trying too hard, I would say.
Not trying too hard. Sure. Yeah. And when coaches are not trying too hard, they will speak less, they will be calmer, they won't interrupt. You will sense all of that in how they're being. Lovely, lovely.
So I would also, in addition to all of this, observe and see a coach with this mindset giving least importance to intellectual cognition and giving more importance to the being. And it came to a strong spotlight when I recently came across a coaching session by an English coach and a Russian-speaking coachee. There's an interpreter in the coaching process, but the interpreter was only interpreting English coaches' English questions to the Russian language, but the reverse never happened.
Oh.
And the coach does not understand a word of Russian. The coaching happened so impactfully. And I realized that the intellectual cognition of the answers that the coachee is articulating is for the coachee's awareness, and the coach does not need to have an intellectual cognition or comprehension of what the responses to those questions are.
I so resonate with you, Johnny. Again, I'll go back to the earlier years where it was all about trying to understand what that word meant, what they said, why they said, more context. And eventually, I would realize that none of that context was relevant at all. How true. Yeah. Thank you. Any other things that you might have observed or experienced? Other coaches do that you felt, wow, that was an amazing embodiment of coaching mindset?
Yeah, one of the things, this is Deepak here, that if the coach is doesn't follow the problem, so the idea of expertise comes in only if we assume we're trying to solve the problem, because actually we don't know much about the person.
Yeah.
If we keep the focus on the human being, then actually we are not an expert of them.
Yeah.
So we are naturally open and curious. If we know that, if we tell ourselves that we are not an expert in their lives.
Very true. Very true. When we coach the person, we are not an expert, and that only enables us to be far more open and curious. Whereas when you're coaching the problem, I need to know, I have to know. How can I not know? Are the kinds of questions that cloud our thinking. Thank you. Last question before we move on to the next section. How can coaches build this competency?
Try to do a session where you only ask questions, for example.
Yeah, what Johnny shared is so powerful. No, you don't understand what the coach is saying, but just knowing the main goal statement for the session, you're asking questions and client is benefiting. Yeah, that would be so lovely, where you don't leave any room to apply your intelligence to make meaning of what the client is saying.
So I'm tempted to respond to your question by saying it's again about contradiction. So it's not building, it's demolishing.
How would you demolish? I love
this is a competency where you cannot build, you demolish whatever mindsets you have, preconceived biases, all that is to be demolished. And that's when this competency comes alive.
Yeah.
So I believe, therefore, it is not something that can be built. It is demolishing something.
You need to demolish to demonstrate the competency. With you, Johnny. Thank you. What else?
Yeah, so just to add to what Johnny is saying, it's a practice nevertheless. When you practice to demolish, which means whatever the verb you choose to do, it needs a practice, which means if you are wanting to get that wonderment of children, you have to allow yourself in your life to feel like the beginner's mindset, in some areas. For instance, I want to learn an instrument suddenly in my life, or, so you get that sense of how does it feel to be a beginner's mindset. So then what the person said earlier also, all the expertise, we are all, full of expertise in our things. I think it comes down further. So these small practices which we have, which is very much related to some of the spiritual practices, where you even sit silently with nothing. It's very difficult to do that. We know that. So which means you come with an empty mind to the thing, which means you can contribute more spontaneously. So we're not thinking about whether it's right or wrong, for instance. And the person very rightly said about the focusing on perhaps the human being means a lot more on the emotion, because we are all live in a world very cognitively structured, right? Everything is to do with the intellect. And that, I think, is not an area to dwell too much on. In fact, I have the experience where I ask most of the male coachees that I ask, they always ask, how many times will you ask me, how do you feel? Because I feel...
And how many times when you ask, how do you feel? The response is, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying. So it is about doing, it is about an action, it's about a behavior, it's about what's happening in the surrounding. Naming that emotion is so difficult for all of us.
Yeah.
So true. So
I have developed a small ritual, and it comes along with our Indian culture. So when we enter a space, we have the habit of leaving our footwear.
Yeah.
So along with that footwear, I imagine myself leaving all that I've learned in my life till then into a backpack, and I leave my backpack along with the footwear outside and enter the space.
Yeah. A very similar metaphor that I use is, hanging the bag outside on the tree before you enter. Yeah.
So we're all naturally, it reminds us when we enter somebody's house or some space to remove our footwear. And you just have to say, okay, I need to tag my footwear along with all that I've learned. Put it in a backpack and leave the bag. behind and enter without anything.
Yeah, so much with you, Johnny, on this one. One of the things that I try to sort of, I'm just starting into this journey new, but one of the things that I'm trying to practice is, they always say that, you get into somebody else's shoes, right? From an empathy perspective. But I think to me, what I try to do is, get into somebody else's shoes, but remove your shoes first, right?
Yeah.
And then get into somebody else's shoes. So
wow, that's so powerful. You can't get into somebody else's shoes with your shoes on.
Right.
Powerful. Yeah. Wow. I'm enjoying this. Okay. I want to enjoy more. So what we did to the main competency, we are going to do it to each of the sub-competencies, 2.1, 2.2 to 2.3.
Shanti, if you can click on the dismiss on your screen, we can see a full screen. There's some reminders on your screen. Yeah.
Okay, I will close it like this.
Thank you.
Is that better? Thanks. So I'm going to put you into 8 rooms. If you can take a screenshot of what you see on the screen, I'll tell you what you have to do in the breakout. Yeah, there'll be a set of 4 questions you will be answering in your rooms. You'll have about 10 minutes. And depending on the room number, your sub-competency, you'll pick up and answer these 4 questions. If you can again click on these questions, because in your breakout rooms, you won't be able to see them. Yeah, I'm assuming you have clicked, and I'm now going to put you into the breakout rooms. So 8 breakout rooms, include co-host and create. So any questions before I move you into your rooms? You have about 10 minutes to answer these questions and come back. Remember to identify who your spokesperson is. We'll be presenting it back to the rest of the meeting room. All clear? Okay, I'm opening the rooms now. I'll message you when about 2 minutes are left so that you're starting to wrap up.
I think Shanti, you're on mute.
Yes. Okay, I was just sharing that I love the first 30 seconds right after a breakout room because I can see everybody on video. Lovely. Couple of announcements before we go to each of the room debriefs. The upcoming months in India are full of festivals and holidays, and I'm trying to accommodate all the holidays, yet maintain a rhythm of 2 sessions each month. So what you will see is sometimes there is a longer gap. We are not able to maintain that every alternate week rhythm. Sometimes there is, they are happening back to back. My intent is to announce the sessions as much in advance as possible. For example, the next session, which is the deep dive on competency 3, is happening on 12th September. And there is a topic on team coaching and systemic coaching, which follows in a couple of, just the week after that. So I'm going to post the links to both of these registrations in the text chat for people to register. You will all receive all the save the dates and everything coming your way. So 12th September and 19th September are the dates. So with that, we can have room number 1 share what they've learned, what they've uncovered.
Yeah, hi. On behalf of everyone in room number 1, we had to look at the statement acknowledges that clients are responsible for their own choices and then answer the questions. So let me begin by saying that all of us tried, but we didn't try too hard. So, having said that, we focused mainly on the first question: what does it mean to all of us? And there were varied comments. So, one of us said that it's to do with giving space, being non-judgmental and open. That was one. And another person shared that, let us think of it as them being the heroes and not us being the heroes in this whole partnership. And the second aspect was that there's the word responsible. So responsible, what we agreed on, at least some of us, was that it's a dual responsibility. So in the sense that some of us as coaches feel a lot more responsibility towards our clients, but at the end of the day, the clients also need to take up that responsibility for themselves. So there was this agreement about a joint responsibility as partners and not just either our own responsibility or their own responsibility. That's what we could discuss in the time.
Lovely. The first question very fabulously answered, what does the competency mean to you? If I were to now ask you, how will you define it or explain the competency to a 10-year-old? What would you say? Anyone, let's work together to create responses. And 2.1 reads, acknowledges that the clients are responsible for their own choices. So how will you explain this to a 10-year-old?
I'll tell a 10-year-old that, here is a range of ice creams. You can choose whichever you want, but whether you like it or not, ultimately it's your choice.
Lovely. Lovely. The outcomes will be a result of your choices. Yeah.
I would also add to, sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Mano.
Yeah, I would just like to take like an example of a parent telling something to a child, that, this is good for you. How would you like it? Or how would you feel if I keep on telling you, this is good for you and this is bad for you?
Yeah.
So same way, if you don't like that, then you should give space to other people also to make their own choices.
Absolutely. And I so resonate with you, Manu. I think after going through coaching myself, I think that's been the biggest shift in how I've started parenting. Letting them make their own choices, letting them decide. And it's okay. I'm there with you to support either ways, whether it works for you, does not work for you. And I'm so proud of what coaching has done to me on this one. Thank you.
Yeah, to add to that, what Manu said, I'll tell the boy to say that there is nothing right or wrong. Whatever the outcome comes, it comes based on his choice and after choice and action on that particular thing.
Lovely.
So he's a creator of his own life or his own outcomes.
Yeah.
Sorry, at the same time, I would just like to add that it probably does not apply to parenting more say, but to just to this example, in the sense that obviously as parents, that mindset should be there, but obviously it applies more, I would say, largely to adults, because children need some guidance.
Yeah, some structuring. I hear that. How would the coach?
Yeah. And I would like to add to that is that the tone in which this is said, because I can see it in the American movies, Hollywood movies, they use a very adult tone while talking to children. But culturally, we don't, the anxiety or I don't know, the attachment to the outcome, especially as parents, I think it's quite different. So taking it to a 10-year-old and not try and, in some way engineer the outcome.
Yeah. And how would you identify an adult tone, Suparna?
This is interesting. I've heard some of my colleagues talk like that to their very young children, and I've been like not pretty sure, that is the tone, because it is a child. But here we're talking about a 10-year-old. So 10-year-old is actually that very nice zone where you're not talking to a child anymore, and the child is not fully an adult.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not able to maybe express it, but I think attention to tone and the intention, our attachment to the intended outcome.
Yeah. Our attachment to the intended outcome.
Yes.
This is where I want my client to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, here is a 10-year-old, and I think that position, if I'm looking at it from a parent ego state, where I want to engineer the outcome unconsciously, many times. So how do we know what we don't know? And then the voice and the tone reveals more than the content sometimes of our words and sentences.
Yes.
So reflection on that, I think, is important. It gives a cue.
Very true. Very true. Any other thoughts before
I just want to back up on what Suparna just mentioned. So to me, a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 30-year-old makes no difference. And I'll tell you why. Because my metaphor of being a coach is that of being a mirror. And a mirror does not distinguish between a 10-year-old going and standing in front of it or a 70-year-old standing. It still reflects.
Yeah.
Right? I think, Johnny. So, our ability to be flexible and mirror the reality of a 5-year-old or even a 2-year-old or a newborn.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to facial gestures. It comes down to the tone. I think how we talk to babies is very different than how we would talk to a 18-year-old, how we would speak to a 60-year-old. Yeah. So adjusting that, and that's the play, really, that is the art. And I think it takes a lifetime's work to come to that space where we constantly fine-tune. Like the tone I'm using in this conversation would be very different from the tone I'll use with my spouse maybe after this is over. So I think there's a lot in that. There's a lot in the fine.
The last question already. How do you build the competency? It's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it is. It is. Absolutely.
So Shanti, Raju here. If I can just add to what Suparna was saying about the tone, and this thought came unbidden into my mind. When you talk of tone, body language, tenor, I think the acid test is when you talk to your pet dog. They don't understand anything, but the tone and tenor conveys whether you're happy, you're rewarding, you're angry, you're sad, and your pet reacts accordingly.
Wow. So, Raju, the interesting thing is with pets, we assume unconditional positive regard and acceptance. Yes. And a space of no judgment.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's not an assumption, that's an experience, actually.
Yeah. Yes, and if we can replicate that in a coaching engagement, it would be
absolutely
stellar.
Yep, agree with you. So lots to learn from dogs about coaching.
Yes.
That's another conversation.
Yeah. Ideas. Thank you. And Piyush says, I would love to tell a 10-year-old, you find mango pickle to be the best pickle, but your favorite friend likes lemon pickle more. And that is okay.
Yeah. And it's okay.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. And you can like both. And how do you build this competency? I think we've touched on it. Any other thoughts on competency 2.1? Yeah. If not, let's applaud for room number 1. Thank you. And room number 2. And Kamal's 10-year-old understands the language of consequences. We teach them that so early in their days. Yeah, totally agree. Room 2 is engages in ongoing learning and development as a coach. Who was in room 2?
I was in room 2. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. All yours.
That's okay, Dee. Go ahead.
Okay, so what we had talked about is we talked about engaging. It's a coach's duty to engage in keeping up with pretty much everything within the coach's work, or within the, all the resources we have. So coming to these webinars, and also going to other conferences and other educational, so we can make sure that we are up to date on all the best things. So pretty much it's for us to stay curious, and it's to make sure that we can kind of have that curious energy, especially when we're in that session. So then that client may, have some of that energy as well, and be able to come up with their answers themselves, and maybe motivate them to do the same, where they're going to continue to grow offline and online.
So beautiful. Thanks, Dee. And Anuj says, attending this session itself is demonstration of Competency 2.2. I'm with you. Thank you. What else?
So just to add to what Dee said, and we were in the same room, by the way, it's all about my preparedness as a coach, my continuous preparedness as a coach, so that I can demonstrate all those abilities within the session, which are expected of me.
Yeah.
So that's a short summary.
I so agree with you. I think, yes, the training of 125 hours got over long ago, I think, but most of the learning has happened after those 125 hours. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, totally agree.
So, yeah. So, I mean, just talk about the small word called awareness.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many dimensions of awareness that I'm actually amazed that I did not know for 60 plus years of mine, and which I'm learning now.
We're all with you. Yeah.
Right. And some of these aspects of awareness are outside my body as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So, so how do I continuously transform myself from one level to another level, so that I become a better and a better coach, day by day, or year by year.
Totally. Ever evolving. That's where we are. Yeah. 10-year-old, how would you explain this to them? I think this is pretty easy to explain to a 10-year-old. What would you say?
Simply, what comes to my mind at this point is, if my child is preparing for an exam, so my question is that, I mean, my question to the child is, what are you doing to prepare yourself? Right? And that may include studying, that may include, spending some time with friends, or that may doing some exercises, that may be doing some pranayam. So entire aspect of preparing for the outcome, for the act.
Another thought that comes to me, Alok, is, when my son was in first grade, he was introduced to addition. In second grade, there was addition, but, the carryover addition. Then in third grade, the same addition topic was there, but they had word problems introduced. So I think we are repeating the things over and again, and with a more evolved understanding as we continue to build our learning.
More complexity as well.
Yeah. I hear that. What would you see a coach do, and how would they be in a coaching conversation if they have demonstrated 2.2?
I think that's all about the outcome, which means that have I demonstrated openness, which means that have I listened completely, did I try to impose my ideas, or did I try to cut short the client, or did I not give them enough choices? So it's all about the outcome of all the other seven competencies actually.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. Let's give room number 2 also a big round of applause. And can we have room number 3?
Hi there, Bhaskar here. Hi, Shanti.
Hi.
First, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Abhimanyu Arora, who took notes while we were discussing.
Awesome.
And also made me the spokesperson of the group. With permission from Rakshit, Razi, Pradeep, and others. So 3 things, in the interest of time, I'll just quickly summarize. We spoke about ongoing reflective practice could be either by keeping a journal, documenting the journey towards mastery, or recording a session with the permission of the client and listening to it, and then ask what different questions I could have asked, what kind of alternate paths I could have taken in a similar situation. What is the evolution from one session to another? So those are the points we discussed. In terms of looking at how we could validate, also we could collect feedback from the client on how the session went and how we appeared and so on. So that's broadly what we discussed in a nutshell. Anyone from the group want to add, please?
Bhaskar, I would like to add something,
Yeah,
but
Deepak.
discuss that in the session. I hope that's okay. So, it's a little bit of one of the things I just wanted to also address what Johnny said much earlier in the conversation. I think the real competency is to demolish what we think we know, And I've been recently, not recently, maybe a couple of years back, started studying Buddhism. And there's a book that is said that is Being Nobody, Going Nowhere, by Ayak Hema. So I think for me, I always remember the title before I go into a coaching session is Being Nobody, Going Nowhere. So,
very powerful. Being nobody, going nowhere. Thank you. Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, let's move to competency 2.4, remains aware of and open to the influence of context and culture to self and others.
Yeah, thank you. And we had Krishnan, Arvind, Kamal, and Mandar with us. My name is Naz, and we couldn't go beyond the first question. But the summary of what we discussed was how do you remain aware and open to influences of culture? And Kamal gave us an example of somebody who came wanted to speak Icelandic, and the coach was Icelandic, and the rapport between them and what happened. It was a very vivid example of how to be open to culture. And Arvind explained about his experiences where he was, for instance, a Japanese guy. You can't understand from the flat tone what that person is feeling, and therefore you can be quite judgmental about, this chap is angry or, whatever the takeout of that was. And Krishna started with saying that, yes, we have to increase our awareness of this and that awareness. So I added to that by saying that, and I think we all agreed about, we all have cognitive dissonances. All human beings have that, and we are aware of it. If you're a psychology student, it'll be uppermost on your mind. Those cognitive dissonances, I use that method to see what are my biases, stronger biases. And I start from there, and that's a practical method for me, so that I'm open to other people. And just to extrapolate a little bit, we didn't answer the second question, but how would you say this to a 10-year-old? Perhaps I would do, I don't know if it's the best way, but I would ask my child if he or she was 10, look at your classroom. If you want to be a leader, or if you want to be listened to, if you want your instructions to be followed, or you want the best outcome, see, look at the different people. There are different religions, different backgrounds, different status, different competencies, different skills, different levels of intelligence. How would you engage with these people and to get the best outcome? I think you put yourself, like they said earlier, in somebody else's shoes, or basically listen and be open to other cultures. So those are the things that
with them at their level in their contexts. Yeah, how beautiful. Yeah, what will you see a coach do, or how will they be in a session if they're demonstrating this competency?
they will probably, you can ask everybody, but
Yeah.
I would think that that suppose there's a person who's of Japanese, a Japanese person sitting there, I would do a little bit of homework before I come into the place, which means I'll try to not overtly, but think what resonates with these people, or what's different about them. Do I know something? So that when I'm building rapport itself, that might come through. And building rapport, as you know, is one of the fundamental things that we do.
Lovely, lovely. And despite that, I've read in places where I Google, okay, how do these kinds of people behave? Sometimes that information has been so misleading, and the person I'm speaking to is completely not what internet tells me. So it's been, yeah. So it's also like, okay, this is how Germans are. I'm like, okay, I'm prepared to interact with a German, and no, I don't experience that person like that. So I had to be open and said, you need to tell me what is okay with you, what is not, because what I've read is not what I'm experiencing now. So true.
The challenge in that kind of an observation, like you just said, Shanti, very rightly, is that anything that tries to describe a nationality or a culture in a few sentences is so difficult. It's like saying, a 1.3 billion Indians are the same, right?
Are the same.
It's just next to impossible. Of course, it becomes even more complex in India's context, given that multiple countries that we have in one country.
Every 50 kilometers, the culture changes.
Yeah, but in any case, right, any generalization is prone to that risk of standardization, and therefore going back to another competency of not knowing, like Johnny and others have pointed out, is probably more.
Johnny seems to have shared some gems today. We're all repeating what Johnny said. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah,
I just like to add
probably.
here.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, please.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kamal.
Yeah, so from the point that we discussed about, sensitivity to culture, I think equally important is also to be aware of too much identification with the culture.
Yeah.
Equally important to be mindful of the fact that I know too much about a culture, and I want to make sure that that doesn't come in the way of my interaction. Just as important it is to interact with somebody whose culture you're just not aware of. So I think both ends of the spectrum, as coaches, we need to be just cognizant of how that might just come in the way.
Yeah. Thanks, Kamal. Yeah, knowing too much, knowing too less, we really don't know. Yeah. Thank you. Room number 4, big round of applause. And room number 5, and the competency says, uses awareness of self and one's intuition to the benefit of the clients. Who was in room number 5?
I was. Pradeep Singh was, and I wonder if Pradeep would like to share, because the others have left the session.
Johnny, is it okay if you want to go ahead? Because
No, I don't have I didn't keep a track of what I think you had some notes. So if you can just share that, I can add if it comes to my mind, Pradeep.
I think the key point that I gathered, Johnny, was how it is important to be observant and bring one's resourcefulness or bring one's vulnerability to deploy to clients' benefits without bringing one's interpretation into the picture.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Pradeep. I think, we were. Thanks for reminding me. So we were talking about how intuition, based on intuition, you are sharing an observation with the client's permission, and with a caveat saying that, this is my observation. If it resonates, share your resonance. If it doesn't, feel free to push back. Right. And that's all you can do, because even if I see a shift in energy, I just have to share what I saw and not what I
felt.
What I felt about that shift. So it is to that extent, I think it is important to not bring your biases into that. And by the time we got down to discussing, it was 5 seconds left. So we didn't discuss the 10-year-old.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah. Thanks, Pradeep.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments on 2.5?
So I think it connects with the cultural aspect that we just spoke about from the previous thing. I went in with the notion that, if I'm coaching somebody from Europe, I have to be keeping in mind certain aspects that I know about Europe and Europeans, and certain aspects about specifically about Germans, and I'm finding that, I have people from everywhere, like Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, Sydney. And what I am realizing is that it's nothing to do with the cultural, like, Anuj spoke about, this many people from India. There is no comparison there's no similarity. I'm noticing that with the same person, he is different from time to time, from session to session. Forget session to session. Within the same session, in the beginning, he is in one state, and during the session, he's in another state, and by the time he ends, he's in a totally different state. I think it has to be in the moment. Like somebody mentioned, it is the liminal space. It's not the space of no longer and not yet. It is this moment. And we, as coaches, we've got to be, providing that space in the liminal space, and not anything that we know of their patterns or all of that is demolished. Yeah. Thanks.
Demolition stands still strong. Yeah. Room number 6.
Before that, can I ask other coaches as well as you as well? So this is one competency that I get stuck with. Intuition, using intuition in a coaching session. Because in a non-coaching world space, I trust my intuition. I use my intuition quite a bit. In this space, as Johnny was observing or narrating, I'm very wary. Is that how much of myself is coming in the intuition? And although he said, you place it as ask the question to the client, that is an observation I am having for you to accept or reject. Still, I am a little wary to use it in coaching, or I don't know to trust it.
I can take a stab at it, Deepak. So the point that I even shared it in our breakout is that at that moment, the client is almost in an amygdala hijack. So it's important for us as mirrors to share from a non-amygdala moment, an observation which comes from intuition. And intuition, like somebody mentioned, when you empathize, you get that intuition about the state that the client is, and you may be 100% off the mark, but at that moment, when the client is going through that experience, he or she may be in an amygdala hijack moment, and it's very difficult for that person to harness an awareness that he or she is getting. So it is important for us as reflective mirrors to share what we think. And like that person said, we must empathize without our shoes on.
Yeah.
We that's very very challenging, very very challenging. I don't know if I just took a stab at responding to your question, Deepak, but I'm sure there is a lot more to it than this.
So I'd like to, Abhimanyu, I'd like to hazard a thought here. So at one time, you're as human, or as the expressions that John used, as the client. So the question you have to ask yourself perhaps is what I am saying in the interest of the client, in the interest of the client's agenda, or is it diagnostic, or is it something which will perhaps further the agenda or the conversation at that moment? And let it be. Sound it as a suggestion or an observation. I leave that to you. You're the best judge at that moment. And remember, as much as it is for the client, the past, and the liminal space of being present, it is so much for you. So it's not as much as what the client is doing, that's something. What you are processing it and what's going on within you is something you need to reflect before you ask your next question. And last thought I had, these are all principles. It's okay to pause for the client, wait for the client to process. It's absolutely okay for you to process yourself and take time and then respond. Thanks. That's my 2 bit on this.
One small little point on this is the way I was looking at it is to look at my own vulnerability and what emotions in the moment are generated in me, rather than what I call intuition coming from a place of cognition. That, okay, let me tell the client what he's not seeing. More than that, looking at what emotions are being generated in me in the moment, and is there something in that that can have meaning or for the client. It could be my own bias also, which is generating that emotion. What is the way I was thinking about this.
Very true. And that's why offering to accept or reject sits with the client. Make an offer. Yeah, they choose. Lovely, lovely. Yeah, we just have 10 minutes. We may need 5-7 minutes additional. Are you all willing to stay back? Thank you. We'll quickly move to competency 2.6. Those who have to drop, we'll try and wrap it up as quickly, but I'm already sensing we'll go over. Room number 6. What did you uncover?
Yeah, hi. I was in room 6 with Anuj and with Raju, and we had an interesting conversation. I'm just going to tell you about question 1, what we talked about. Anuj was, when he spoke about emotional regulation, developing and maintaining, he spoke about being detached, objective, mirror-like, like bearing witness without the emotion and completely present. Raju spoke about how, it is more of a retrospective process of looking back and saying, whether one was presenting an emotionally, I think, emotionally regulated presence. If one was projecting that, one was that. Correct me, Raju, if I'm misrepresenting you. And I think what I spoke about was, as a coach, allowing yourself, not allowing the state of your own mind and your own personal circumstances interfere with the energy of coaching, the holding space for the client, so that you are completely centered and present for the client, so that your own state of mind, your own state of emotions doesn't interfere with coaching.
Lovely. And I find it so difficult to separate what I'm feeling versus what the client is feeling. They're almost joined at the hip. Raju, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just saying that, as part of the discussion, I mentioned that sometimes the coachee comes to the session when the coachee is in a situation of stress for whatever reason. And after that session is over, it is worth for the coach to reflect upon whether the coach was able to maintain a distance, emotional distance. And I like the term in our discussion that Anuj used, that
there is an involvement, but not an entanglement. I thought that was very powerful. And I think that for the coach to reflect whether you're able to maintain that emotional distance and not really get sucked into the vortex is important.
Beautiful. Any other comments? Okay, moving to room number 2.7, mentally and emotionally prepares for the session. Room number 7. Very possible people would have dropped out. Anyone who wants to share?
I will do that.
Sure, John.
So we had the point on mentally and emotionally preparing for the session. So the first thing we discussed was, what does a competency mean to you? It means that how, in whatever emotional state you are in, how can you be better prepared for a coaching engagement?
Yeah.
That's I'm just moving a little faster, but that's what we discussed. How will you explain this competency to a 10-year-old? We said that what we discussed was, how can you be attentive and how can you be quiet and attentive? How can you do that? That's what we discussed. How do you observe in a coach that indicates that indicates they are demonstrating the competency? It is about being empathetic and also, but not emotionally involved, but being empathetic with the client, and the client feels, or the coachee feels that the coach understands what I'm saying. As long as they feel that, that's how the demonstration happens. How can coaches build the competency? One, mindfulness, practicing mindfulness, and like we said earlier, continuous practice, even just before the coaching session, taking that 3 or 4 minutes to center ourselves for that. That's what we discussed.
Thank you. And that 3 or 4 minutes of centering, yourself, and also reflecting on what happened in the previous session. Is there something that the client wants, this thing in this session that relates to what we've observed? And getting to remember what has happened until now is so important. Otherwise, things look so connected. Yes, Abhimanyu, please, it's been shared. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, John C. And can we have room number 8? Seeks help from outside sources when necessary.
Yes, Shanti, in that room, I was with Jalaja. We were 2 in the room. Mm-hmm. So what we discussed is, especially as a coach, when we see a coachee is having issues related to a mental illness or maybe depression, we should refer to the external, agencies or the psychologists who can help or do the counseling. That's the one point. Second thing, what we also thought is at times when we ask for the feedback with the coachee, how the coaching sessions are happening, in a midway, it may be little an upset feedback. At times, the coach may hear from the coachee saying that the coachee is not getting, the expected outcome, what he or she was, meant for initially. So again, coach makes an attempt to see what is the missing pieces and try to help. But at the end, if coach makes that he is not contributing or she is not contributing as a coach in enabling the coachee, the coach should actually pass the mantle to a peer coaches or refer this particular coachee to other coaches.
Yeah, so true. And I found even mentor coaching to be so beneficial. Every time I've gone with my stuckness, my mentor has really helped me think through what is happening to me. I think that's the most phenomenal thing. In a mentor coaching session, I reflect on myself as a coach to work through how I can make the sessions better with my clients. So I think that's a beautiful journey to take. Seek help, and peer coaches, I think, are a lovely pool of
Yeah, and also, in the pre-coaching conversation, we set the expectation to make the coachee understand what exactly the coaching, counseling, training, consulting means. But many times the coachee expects a solution. So if the topic is such a way, we should refer to the external consultants. And in my view, actually seeking help is not a sign of weakness to the coach. It is a sign of strength and confidence.
and knowing what you're there for in this session. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Jalaja, please feel free to add if I missed out anything.
Hey, Jalaja. I spoke to Jalaja today morning and she's here. Thank you.
No, nothing from my side, Shanti. Srini is covered.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, we do come to the end of the deep dive. I would like you to take a couple of moments to reflect on how the session went. Did it really help you deepen awareness about what this competency is all about? How should you be demonstrating it? Who should you be being in a coaching conversation? What should you keep in mind? And are there better ways to do this? And if there are volunteers for the upcoming deep dives, I would love to stay on, and any feedback is welcome.
Right now, Shanti?
Yeah, that will be helpful so that I can plan accordingly. If you want to put it in the text chat or WhatsApp me, mail me, all of that is fine.
No problem. I'll just take a few seconds to give you some feedback. I think the format, as usual, is very good because I get to hear the richness of other people's experiences. So the breakout room helps to bring a lot more of that. And people sharing very mindfully, of course, and so it's very helpful. It gets different perspectives. It adds a lot to what I may already know, and a lot of times it's what I don't know, which gets filled. So thank you for that, and it's really nicely done in a short while. It's very, very enriching.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can. I also want to give some feedback. Actually, I personally love the way you conduct this session. The first 15-20 minutes have gone into summarizing from the definition of the competency itself. So you see, the entire competency got explained from that discussion itself, right? So that's a wonderful way, and congratulations, great work, and a lot of clarity, and of course, gems of Johnny and others have all also added to it.
Thank you. And I will pass on all your congratulations to the person I learned this from, deep diving into every word of the competency. So we'll do that. Thank you.
Shanti, my feedback on the session, if you allow me. See, many of us, we are actually very routine now in our day-to-day activities. But as an individual, when I get into this type of sessions, actually, it is a sort of a break, in the coaching area. It takes back to my basics, and every time I hear, topic remains the same thing, but the way how people put across, their thoughts, there are multiple angles, and I learn a lot. And happy to be part of these sessions, Shanti.
So true, so true, so true. Learning never stops in any of the chapters, for that matter, and this one is my chapter, so it's the most amazing for me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shanti. I just wanted to add that we learn, unlearn, and relearn. And with such a platform, I think you are doing amazing job. Thank you so much, and looking forward for other sessions too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything that can be done better? Because I'm running out of ideas for a deep dive competency 3. Any ideas? I'll be happy to work with you.
Shanti, some sessions recording, very short session recording, and then their interpretation. Like it's just a vague idea which just popped into my mind. So that would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, recording, or maybe we can have coach volunteers do a 10-minute, 15-minute coaching session, and then we work on that competency. Sure. Let's see who's brave enough. What else?
Can I go, Venkatadri, here?
Yes, please.
Yeah, see, I think this time it was very well done. I liked the breakout and focusing on some of the critical points. Since you are asking for what more can be done, I think what I would like to suggest is there that if we can look at because as coaches, many a times not everything goes the way we as a coach we would like it to happen. For example, the the client is in a really expressive mood or stuff like that, and many a times things can also go a little awry. For example, the client may get into so much of brown water pouring that client may never allow to move away from the past. That is so these are that is one saying. How do you get if such a thing happens, what can be done by the coach to get things out of it? Point number one.
Sure.
The second problem statement that one has typically also seen is there that sometimes the client is not moving, really picking up what is it that the client has learned, or what is the insight that the for a coach it may appear very from outside, hey, this is a excellent insight that the client has got, and even if we kind of sometimes articulate it, the client still doesn't catch it. So then how do you actually make the client understand that? And the third important part of it is there that many a times when we are getting into the action planning stage, now again there are some clients who are still living in that exploration area and not wanting to move into a conclusion or a action planning stage. So what I'm trying to articulate is there that many a times we in many sessions I think in each one of them, if we can take, if there is something that is not going right, how does a coach support in bringing things back into the flow?
Sure. Yeah. So with regards to that competency, what all can go wrong, what challenges can coaches face, and we can co-create what might be options to work through them. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Venkatadri. That's a great suggestion. Anything else?
Hi, Abhimanyu here. I just reflected on what Venkatadri shared. Just a tweak of it. Instead of focusing on what can go wrong, let's focus on what possibly can go right, because the list of things that can go wrong is humongous. And in that sense, what I wanted to just share as a suggestion with everyone is maybe if you could come up with a set of lighthouse principles at the end of each session. So for instance, competency, the one we discussed today. So maybe some 5 principles which are like lighthouses, which guide people in their own journeys rather than being prescriptive. And then let people be Abhimanyus and get out of their own chakra views or get in their coaching sessions, if I may use that as a metaphor. So that would be something which people go on a high with. They take something with them. Thanks. That's my 2 big.
Sure.
Thank
Thanks,
you. But I'd like to also say this. I think I must compliment you. I'm seeing the energy. I'm seeing the beautiful way in which you orchestrated this session. You let go, and I know at times I saw you had an urge to say so many things with your expertise, but you were so gracious and appreciative. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhimanyu. With that, we can close. People who've stayed on for 7 additional minutes, thank you so much. I'm still here. Anybody wants to share, add, volunteer for the lighthouse principles, let me know. I'll be happy to get as much help I can. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
can work
Right.
on this.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ashwin, Mrinal, Abhimanyu.
Yeah. So, if you would like, some kind of partnership or help in terms of these lighthouse principles, I can share some if that helps. I thought since you wanted a volunteer.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So I will do that, and I'll send it to you. Maybe you could circulate it accordingly to people.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, noted. Would you want the recording for that, or your notes are sufficient?
No, I think a recording would be great.
Wonderful.
Also, I will, I'll share something out of the recording, but something, because I'm also an ICF assessor, accredited. So I will share some 3 or 4, key points, not a long list, just 5 or 4 points and principles. If you're doing this, then let your practice give you the insights that you want, and
that will be so
something
lovely.
Like that.
Yeah, that will be so lovely. So I will put the recording onto a Google Drive. Get the link with you, and let's see. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you so much. Thank you for your help. Thank you. Bye-bye.